everyone, it's Affy, and today I am here to do my long overdue June wrap up. I read 7 books in June, so a little bit better than I've been doing the last couple of months, but I won't talk too much. I'm just going to hop on in. The first book that I read in June was actually part of the Ravenel's series and also the Wallflower series. This is Devil's Daughter by Lisa Kleypas. And we have Wes Ravenel and Phoebe are Lady Claire, as she's called. And Wes and Phoebe's late husband were schoolboy roommates, and so when they were kids in school way back in like middle school, I think, they were roommates, and Wes was basically a bully to her husband. I think his name was Henry, and Henry was sickly. He just was not a healthy person, and so her and Henry got married, and they knew he was sick, but they loved each other. They wanted to get married, and so they did. And after a few years of marriage, Henry passes away. His cousin and her brother are getting married, so of course they meet each other at the wedding party. And she doesn't know who he is at first, and so they have this automatic attraction to one another. And then she realizes who he is, that he is the man that bullied her late husband when he was a child. And she immediately has this, like, she goes from like, oh, he's so hot, he's so cute, to just like, ew, he's that person. I can't stand him. And so he's a little confused because he's like, it seemed like, we hit it off at first. I don't know what happened. But then they get sat next to one another at a dinner party before the wedding, and he charms her and he kind of wins her over a little bit. And so she kind of is like, okay, fine. He might actually be a good guy. She's got a son. So he becomes really close to her son. Wes used to be kind of a man about town who would drink to excess, get himself in trouble. He was a rake. He was a mess. His brother basically gave him the opportunity to get his life together and was like, look, I need help managing the lands that we now have to manage because we're landowners. And he becomes land steward, and he basically is like a farmer at this point. So he's gone from like a rake and a rogue to a farmer man. So I really love their relationship in this book. I said that this was romantic, funny, and sweet. One of the things that I liked about this story was just the fact that she was basically able to break down all his walls. Like, he could not say no to her. My favorite part of this book is actually when Phoebe's dad, who is, well, now he's a duke, but he was the former Saint Vincent from the Wallflowers. Her dad basically steps in and is like, if you want my daughter, you need to go out there and you need to get her and you need to marry her. Because he's just like feeling sorry for himself and like, oh my gosh, I can't have her because I was such a shitty person back in the day, and like, she's not gonna want me. And her dad is basically like, yeah, you're gonna need to get over that. But I really, really love this one. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I love this series as a whole. This series is just so much fun and just so good. So yeah, this was another great one from Lisa Kleypas. So the second book that I read in June is Between the Devil and Desire by Lorraine Heath. This is part of the Scoundrels of St. James series, I believe. I can never remember the name of this one. But this is about Jack Dodger and Olivia, who is a duchess. And Jack is the owner of a gaming den, and he is called one day to the Duke's home. And this Duke has passed away, and he's left Jack everything, including guardianship of his son. Olivia, who's his wife, now widow, basically loses her shit because she's like, I don't know this man. Where the fuck did he come from? And why the hell is he taking over guardianship of my child? She's not happy whatsoever, and she gives this man a really hard time. This is a really good enemies to lovers. Like, they start out just, they hate each other. He's like, this woman is conniving and she's obnoxious and annoying and I cannot stand her. And she's basically like, I don't know who the hell this man thinks he is, but he's not walking into my house and telling me what to do. Absolutely not. It's intense in the beginning. They're going at it like cats and dogs in the beginning of this book, and I was eating that shit up. I was just like, It was delicious. As time goes on and she kind of sees how he is with her son, she kind of eases up a little and she's like, okay, maybe he's not that bad of a person. He's at least treating my son well. She kind of gives a little olive branch, just like, okay, fine, maybe we started off on the wrong foot. I'm willing to put all this shit aside if you are. And so at first he's like cautious. He's like, I don't know, you kind of crazy. But he decides he's gonna put his shit aside too, and that's kind of how they go from having this intense, like, passionate hate for one another to finally kind of opening the doors and the floodgates to a friendship, at least. And then it goes on from there. I didn't like Jack Dodger in the previous book. I thought he was a bit of a dick, and so it was nice to kind of get into his head and kind of see where his mentality comes from and what he's thinking. He had a horrible childhood. This man had a horrible childhood. And there are aspects of his past that kind of come back to haunt him, well, to haunt them as a whole. I like him by the end of the book. Like, he's a cool guy. He's actually not that bad of a person. And she definitely, once she falls for him, she falls really, really hard for him. Yeah, the enemies to lovers trope in this one was definitely done really well. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. I'm enjoying this series. The third book that I read in June is by Suzanne Enoch. This is Some Like It Scott. In this book, we have Monroe, or Bear is his nickname, and Katrina. Bear lives with his brother, who's a laird, and I think he's got maybe 2 other brothers, or another brother and a sister or something. There's like 4 or 5 siblings in his family, and he's the youngest son. He's riding out on their land one day hunting, and he is trying to catch, I don't know if it's elk or deer or whatever it may be, and somebody else shoots it down before he gets to it, and he's like, what the fuck, like, who's out there? And it's a woman. And he's like, oh, this is interesting. So he follows her back to where she is in hiding, and it's just the ruins of like some old castle or home or something like that happens to be on their land. And he finds that she is living there by herself. And so he tries to approach, and she's got a gun. And the first time he tries to approach her, she's basically like, I will shoot your head off from right here inside this house. Like, don't take another step onto this property. Like, and he's basically like, look, this is my family's property. Like, you can't tell me to get the fuck off this land. This is my family's property. Comes back the next day, and she threatens him again. Like, I told you yesterday, get the hell off my doorstep. I don't want any help from you. I just want to be left alone. He doesn't care. He keeps coming back. And, you know, at one point he asks, he's like, do you need anything, lass? Like, food, water, what do you need? And she's like, I don't need anything, although some books would be nice, and maybe some bread. So he goes and he actually brings back all the stuff that she asked for, and she's like, oh, okay, maybe he's not that mean. And so they start to talk to one another. She kind of backs down. She wears pants, which he finds very fetching. He's just like, yeah, she got some pants on. I like Daddy likes. They basically start to have feels for one another. And then one day his brother shows up to kind of find out what he's doing because he keeps disappearing every day. It definitely gets interesting from there. She's got a sister with her. They're both hiding out from having to marry men that they don't want to marry. So this one was a lot of fun. Bear is one of those people who he stands up for the people that he loves. And he puts his foot down with his family when it comes to Katrina. He's like, she's my woman and y'all gonna respect my woman. His family does not like it. They don't like it at all. But he doesn't care, and he basically is like, I will start an entire war if I have to keep this woman. I want her, and I'm gonna have her. So, I really like Bear. If you cannot tell, I really like Bear. I think he's amazing. He's willing to fight his own family for this woman, so I really like Bear. Bear is kind of funny in that he's one of those men who his brothers are all married and have their families and their kids, and he's kind of like, ew, like that's never gonna be me. Like nobody's gonna get me to settle down. It's not gonna happen. And then he meets Katrina. This one was really funny, super cute, and just all kinds of romping, rolling fun. Like I said, I really like Bear, and Katrina is a badass. I really, really love this one. I gave it 5 stars, and I do plan to go back and read the other books in the series, so really looking forward to it. The 4th book that I read in June is by Joanna Shoup. This is part of the Knickerbocker Club. This is Mogul. And I just realized yesterday that this is actually the 3rd book in the series, and I'm currently reading the 2nd book in the series, so I read this out of order, as usual. This book is about Calvin and Lillian, and Calvin is a newspaperman. He owns several newspapers in New York City, and Lillian is the daughter of I can't remember what her dad was, but she and Calvin get married. They meet, they marry. It's like a whirlwind thing, and they are basically holed up in this hotel room having their little honeymoon when her father finds out that she has gotten married. And he comes and he threatens Calvin and basically is like, you know, if you don't break up with my daughter or annul this marriage with my daughter, I've found out secrets of yours that I'm going to tell. Calvin annuls the wedding. He doesn't say anything to her about what's going on. So a few years pass, I think it's like 3 years later, and she gets a letter from like a Chinese gang leader, and her brother has gone missing, and this guy is basically threatening to make the news about her marriage to Calvin known to the city, like spread it out in public, because it happened so quickly and they got annulled so quickly that nobody ever found out. And so basically this guy is threatening, like, if you don't find your brother, I'm going to report it to the news that you and Calvin Cabot were married, and she knows that this is basically going to ruin her. Calvin is the last person she wants to go to for help, but she has to, and he basically denies everything. He's like, I absolutely will not help you out. I don't care what the situation is. And she's like, okay, but this is my brother's life. This is our marriage that happened. You know, it's gonna be out there in the news. Like, don't you care? And he's basically like, I don't give a fuck. So she has to find another way to deal with the situation. So she personally goes to see this gang leader, and Calvin happens to be there. And he's shocked when he sees her, and they have to help each other kind of get out of the situation, because this guy is not going to easily let them leave. Like, he's really upset about whatever he's upset about, and he doesn't want them to go. And so they have to help each other kind of get out of this situation. And so after that, he's like, fine, I'll help you find your brother. Like, what do we need to do? And so they go on an adventure trying to find her brother and figure out why he's run away. And along the way, they obviously rehash their past relationship, and things start to evolve and change, and they start to fall back in love. And it's really interesting. I like this one. I felt like, though, that it was a bit more lust than love in this book. They definitely gave me, they just gave me more lust vibes than love vibes. There's a lot about laws around the Chinese and how they weren't allowed to enter the country for a certain amount of years. So there's like a historical aspect to it that plays into the story, and it was really interesting to kind of learn about that, about the history of the Chinese Americans and how for a period of time they were banned from coming to the US. This one was interesting. Like I said, really fun, definitely a lot going on, a lot of action in this one. Very sexy, but also more lust than love. But I still gave it 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. So, yeah. So the 5th book that I read in June was by Jennifer Ashley. This is The Wicked Deeds of Daniel McKenzie. This is part of the McKenzies and the McBride series. And I really, 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 really love this book. We've got Daniel McKenzie, obviously, and then Violet. And Violet is a spiritual medium. And when she meets Daniel, he finds out about all the gadgets that she uses to do her readings and, ghost noises and stuff like that when she's doing her readings. He basically approaches her and tells her so. He's like, you're full of shit. Like, none of this is real, and I don't believe anything that you try to tell me. Like, he basically tells her, like, this is bullshit. Like, I know this is your job, but you're just scamming people, basically. He really likes her. He's got, like, a thing for her, and he tries to kiss her, and she knocks him over the head, and he passes out. She isn't sure if he's alive or dead, and so she basically takes his body, puts it in a wheelbarrow, and leaves it outside the door of a doctor's office, I think. So she doesn't throw him in a ditch somewhere. But she does kind of just roll his body out of the house. And then she runs off with her mom and leaves town, thinking that, he is dead and that she's going to be caught and basically be named a murderer. And hung, so she's terrified. So she and her mom leave and they go to France. They're doing a show, her and her mother, and 2 or 3 nights in, Daniel shows up and she's just like, oh shit. I mean, it's good that he's alive, but now he's here, and I don't know if he's upset and is gonna want to, like, take me back to get me thrown into jail. So she's just terrified. She doesn't know what's gonna happen. And he's basically like, it's really cute that you hit me over the head and knocked me out. I mean, thank you for at least dropping me in front of a doctor's office. That was kind of you. That was very, very kind of you. At least they were able to help me out. And she's like, what? And he's just like, yeah, so anyways, we should hang out. And it kind of goes on from there. This book is very entertaining. This book is very, very entertaining. It takes some weird turns. But I just love the fact that she was losing her mind thinking she'd killed this man, and he didn't even care. He was just like, it's understandable that you hit me over my head. Like, I was trying to kiss you. I probably should have given you a warning. It's my own fault. He's fun. I like Daniel. He's a sweet guy. He's hilarious to me. I really, really enjoyed this book. I said it was so much fun and sweetness rolled into one book. Daniel is a delight, and Violet has fortitude. I really love them together as a couple. They're so cute. His family is, I just love the McKenzies as a whole. They're a very close-knit family, and they come to his and her rescue multiple times. It gets pretty dark towards the end of the book. His family had to come to his rescue, and I really love the way that they stand by one another, and yeah, it was so good. This was such a good book. I gave it 5 stars. I really, really loved it. And like I said, Daniel is he's the sweetest thing ever. He's just got such an amazing personality. He's such an upbeat, fun guy. And I would hang out with Daniel. I think he's cool. I think he's real cool. So I really enjoyed this one. 6th book I read in June is by Karen Rainey. This is The Scottish Companion, and this is a standalone, at least I believe it is. In this book we have Grant and Gillian, and Gillian is the companion to a young woman who is the daughter of a doctor. Grant is an earl. He recently lost both of his brothers, and so he's now the earl. And he needs a wife. He needs to get married immediately and have children as soon as he possibly can. And so he's talking to the doctor one day, and the doctor has a daughter, and he's basically like, okay, let me marry your daughter. Like, you have a daughter, let me just marry her. Like, I don't want to have to look for a wife. Just let me marry your daughter. And at first the doctor's like, what? You sure you don't want to at least try to find a wife? And he's like, no, as long as your daughter is fine with it, bring her over, just, you guys come and stay, I'll get to know her, and then, we can announce it and we can get married. I don't want to have to do all this rigmarole around trying to, court and date and all of that stuff. So the doctor's like, fine, I guess. I guess you can meet my daughter. I'll bring her around. And so the 3 of them show up, and obviously Grant is taken with Gillian. The doctor's daughter is a very cold, very mean and rude young woman, and she wants nothing to do with Grant. But him and Gillian immediately have like a thing for one another, and so he starts trying to spend time with Gillian, and the doctor is realizing this, and he's getting very annoyed and basically trying to tell Gillian, like, you need to know your place, like, he's not here to marry you, he's here to marry my daughter, like, stay in your lane. But he keeps approaching her, so she can't do anything about that. It kind of goes from there. This story is sad. There are some very, very sad things that happened in this book. When everything gets revealed at the end, my jaw was literally on the floor. I was not expecting what happened to have happened. So this one definitely takes you for a roller coaster ride, and I loved it. It was really, really good, but it was definitely shocking. I gave this one 4 stars, and one of the things I liked about it is they had very interesting conversations between the 2 of them, very like cerebral, just very intelligent conversations, different from what I've usually read. Gillian she's trying her hardest to kind of do her job and not be a menace and get in the way, but Grant is so into her, and he's he's not trying to hide the fact that he's into her. He's just like at dinner time, he's talking to her. Like when it's time to go for a walk, he's asking her to go for a walk. And, you know, she's basically like, look, I have nowhere to go. This is like, this job is all I have, and you can't get me in trouble, because if I lose my job, I don't have anything. And he's a man, so he don't care. He's just like, but I want to talk to you. So yeah, Grant could get on my nerves a little bit with that, but it all worked out in the end, so it's okay. Jillian does have a past, and the doctor kind of uses it against her. It kind of comes back up. This was still a good one. I did enjoy it. I love stories like set in Scotland, so that in and of itself made me excited to read it. But yeah, I like Karen Rainey, so this was another good one by her. So the last book that I read in June was by Maya Rodell. This is Some Like It Scandalous. This is part of the Gilded Age Girls Club, and this book was really good. This is another enemies to lovers, and I feel like this one was also done very well. This one was definitely very funny. So in this book we have Theodore Prescott III, which you have to say the third because there's also a Theodore Prescott II. But we've got Theodore Prescott III and Daisy Swan. When they were young, when they were about 13, 14 years old, Theodore called her an ugly duck or ugly duckling in front of like all these kids, and the nickname stuck. And people are still calling her ugly duck even as a woman in her early 20s at this point. And so she absolutely hates him because of that fact. But one day, their parents, her mother and his father, meet somehow at like a restaurant or something, and they bump into each other, and they start talking about how they're trying to get their kids married off. And so they decide that they want Daisy and Theodore to get married. For Daisy, her mother is basically trying to save the family from some type of ruin. And for Theodore Prescott II, aka Teddy's dad, he has his own reasons for wanting his son to get married. He basically wants to have Theodore kind of settle down. He feels like he's just kind of a boy about the town, and he's not growing up and being a man. So he feels like it's time for his son to get married. And so their parents announce to them that they want them to get married, and of course they both lose their ever-loving minds. Daisy is basically like, I will absolutely not marry this man. Like, you know what he did to me. Why would you even ask me such a thing? And then for Theodore, he's basically like, ew, her? I don't want to marry her. Enemies to Lovers is done very well in this one. I really like it. And their back and forth, their banter is just so good. I really liked it. He starts to kind of feel bad for her in the way that people talk to her. He realizes that, you know, that's kind of because of him that people treat her the way that they treat her. And he starts to feel bad about that. And that's kind of where the tides start to turn for them a little bit. He realizes that he's really made a mistake, even though he was a child and he didn't realize kind of what he was doing and saying. He still is just kind of like, I'm so sorry, like I didn't realize, and the way people treat you is horrible. And so that's kind of where the tide starts to turn for them. She has a dream of creating cosmetics, and at the time cosmetics were considered something that only prostitutes and like theater actresses wore. And so a lot of people kind of are looking at her in like sideways, just like, why would you do that? You're a lady. Like, we ladies don't wear cosmetics. But she's hell-bent on creating this line of products, and she's even going to school for it. And he helps her. He steps in and kind of helps her to start this business that she's been wanting to start. And the two of them kind of become business partners, and it's really, really nice. It's kind of feminist in that sort of way. But this was a really funny one. I like the way Maya Rodell writes. Her writing style is very, very funny. And I remember really enjoying the first book in this series as well, and thinking that one was also very funny. So she's just got a very interesting way of writing, especially like the dialogue is so good. So I really enjoyed this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and yeah, I think there's one more book in the series, so I'm looking forward to finishing it up, just because the first 2 were, like I said, just really funny books. All right, everyone, that was all the books that I read in June. Hopefully this video isn't too long, but I really had a good reading month. I had all 4s and 5s and found some new loves, and it was just a good month overall. So I really, really enjoyed June as a whole. And so if you've read any of these books, or you have opinions on any of them, leave some comments in the comment section. If you've made it to the end of this video, leave me a peacock emoji, just to show that you watched, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.